there's not a lot to it, and that's one of the things I really love about this is we're not trying to maximize the amount of moving parts. We're actually doing the opposite. We're trying to minimize the amount of moving parts. What can you do without? What can you leave at home? What is the core amount of gear that you need to pull this off? Anything more than that you bring is just going to slow you down. Earlier this week, I did kind of a final dress rehearsal of a Colorado Trail Unsupported FKT attempt. I did the last 7 sections of the trail, about 120 miles, in about 55 and a half hours, and I was pretty happy with that time. And this was sort of like a final dress rehearsal for myself to see how fit I felt, as well as for my gear and how dialed my system is. And I still have a few little tweaks here and there, but I have what is basically my gear rollout for the Colorado Trail Unsupported FKT attempt right here. And I thought it'd be really fun to just go through it and share the types of gear I'm going to bring. And this right here, this is it in its entirety. It's not a lot of gear, and the less weight on your shoulders, more than likely the faster you're going to go. So I have in my hand right now the Ultimate Direction Fast Pack 40. This is the largest pack I think Ultimate Direction makes, and it's filled with all the gear I brought for my little dress rehearsal. I brought 3 days of food, and I consumed 2 days of food. For my trip, I'm going to load something like this up with 10 days of food. So this top is a roll top. You can unroll it and put more stuff in. Fitting 10 days of food in something like this is going to be challenging. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to actually do that. But that's currently the plan. This Fast Pack 40 has a few modifications from a stock pack. One of them is the back panel. If you can see right here, the back panel has been removed, and in its place is a closed cell foam pad, the kind of pad you sleep on. And when I get into the sleep system, we'll take this out and I'll show you what that's about. The second modification I did was I actually added kind of a little hip belt. And you can see right here, this is the hip belt. This hip belt is from a different pack called a Nashville Cutaway that I found works pretty okay on the Fast Pack 40. Since this pack has no internal frame and it's not actually made or designed to have a hip belt, it works only marginally well. I've tried this idea in the past with a different hip belt, and I was just kind of experimenting how well it would work again. And, feelings are mixed, but it's better than nothing, especially when you're starting out with all the weight in the pack that you're going to have, which is around, give or take, 40 pounds. So I was actually really pleased in how this closed cell foam pad worked as a back padding. Now, if you look, the closed cell foam pad is a lot wider than this pack is tall. So I had to wrap the pad around to the bottom of the pack. And that actually worked really well. And it's just held together by a bungee cord that I attached to some of the daisy chains that are found on the pack already. So I really love the Ultimate Direction Fast Pack 40, or all the Fast Packs, or all the running vests that Ultimate Direction puts out, primarily for these front pockets. I love putting stuff in the front pockets like snacks or my headlamp or other clothing that I might need, my sunglasses, more snacks, my phone, other electronics, water bottle. And it allows me not to have to take the pack off, rummage through all the pockets and try to figure out where the stuff I need is. It's all up front. That's why I kind of chose the Fast Pack 40 for this project. It's going to be really hard to say, choose a different pack from a different manufacturer, just because none of them have these front pockets that are designed quite as well as what Ultimate Direction puts out. So for now, we're going with the Fast Pack. The only reason why this wouldn't work, this Fast Pack wouldn't work, is can I put 10 days of food in here? If I can't, I might have to figure out a different solution. In one of the side pockets, I just have some trekking poles. These are trekking poles from La Sportiva, some carbon trekking poles. They're 130 centimeters, which are kind of tall for me, but I've been experimenting with taller poles that kind of give more of a cross-country ski feel or technique. I'm not quite sold on that. I might go shorter again and kind of lose a little bit of weight, about 100 grams with my shorter pole. So again, we're still kind of playing around with ideas, but there's some really great ideas kind of bubbling around in my head. This is also part of my sleep system, but we'll get to that again. Okay, let's talk water. The Colorado Trail, by and large, has a lot of water sources available. There are a few dry sections. So I have one 1-liter bottle, one 700-liter bottle. These are just smart water bottles. They're very cheap, they're very durable, and they're extremely light. And I've got a platypus filter on this one. I filter all my water on the trail. It's just too busy at the trail. And in the front pocket right here, I have a very lightweight cycling style bottle with a wide mouth. And I use a lot of powdered nutrition, so I like something that's easy to dump that powder in and then add more water. One of the driest sections is segment 2, and I actually hit it in the middle of the night after a rainstorm. So it was not hot and dusty and dry. I don't think I ever had all 3 of these filled up to the top. But if I did, I have about almost 2.5 liters of storage, and that seemed plain to me. Okay, clothing. For the most part, I wore the same exact thing each and every day. I had a hooded sun shirt on top, a pair of very lightweight running shorts on my legs, a pair of wool socks, this nice little hat here, and a pair of Joel sunglasses. Okay, here's the sun shirt I wore. This is a hooded sun shirt from Kettle, and I really like this sun shirt a lot. It's as light as I can get away with without getting burnt. There are lighter, more breathable sun shirts on the market, primarily Outdoor Research's Echo, but the fabric is so thin I'll actually get burned through it. This fabric is just a little thicker, just a little less breathable, but I can wear it without having to actually put sunscreen on as well as this shirt. So that's really cool. And it's also not super heavy. It's just a little bit heavier than an Outdoor Research Echo. Okay, aforementioned running shorts that have not been washed yet, but there they are, in case you don't know what running shorts look like. And a pair of socks. These are just smart wool kind of hiking socks with a lot of good cushioning on the bottom there. Feet get sore on this trip, so this is only one of 3 pairs of socks I brought because you want a fairly clean pair of socks always on your feet. Okay, let's go inside where the rest of my clothes are stored. I'm going to put this pack on the ground, and here are the rest of the clothes that I brought. And I put it just in a Dyneema bag that's actually belongs to a tent, just because I don't have any bags that are lighter than this Dyneema bag at this size, so might as well use the lightest bag I have. Got some rain gear. I've got a jacket and some pants, some water-resistant jacket and pants. I never used the pants at all, and I used the jacket maybe for an hour. But it does rain in Colorado sometimes, I've heard, so it's often nice to have some sort of waterproof or at least very water-resistant layers. So that's what these are. These are both from Ultimate Direction. They're very, very light. So I brought a buff, a neck gaiter, and I use this in lieu of a hat, like a warm winter hat or something. And that's all I needed it for. It wasn't very cold. Socks, just have another pair of medium weight hiking socks. I always like to have a clean pair available, so if I need to wash and then dry the pair I was wearing, I can, and just put another pair on. I actually have another pair of socks that are just for sleeping in, and these are from Fairpoint, and they're made of a really cool fabric called Alpha Direct. This is a 90 weight Alpha Direct, and this fabric is extremely lofty, extremely breathable. It's just very delicate, so I only wear these when I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag, but they allow my feet to dry out while also staying warm. Foot hygiene is super, super important, so it's one of my secret weapons. Alpha Direct socks, 25 grams or so for the pair. And with that, I actually have this Alpha Direct 60, I guess you'd call it mid-layer. It was my only other layer. I didn't bring a goose down jacket, puffy or anything. This was the only kind of mid-layer I brought. Yeah, so you have to wear this underneath something else. So I always wore this underneath my sun shirt. I never wore this alone because you'll just tear it. But it's extremely warm for how much it doesn't weigh. Packs down really small, and it's extremely lightweight. I don't know if I'm going to bring anything else. I'm definitely not going to bring a puffy. Didn't feel like I need one. I might actually just bring one of those, another one of those Alpha Direct hoodies and double that up if I feel really cold. And I do have a pair of Alpha Direct leggings, and I might bring those too. And not to be forgotten, I brought these guys. These are called dance pants. They're marketed for dancers, and they're just kind of like warm up pants. And I use these as a pair of sun pants, sun protective pants. Uh, the difference between these and real sun pants is these weigh about a third of the lightest pair of sun pants I could find, and they're just made of a very, very, very thin ripstop nylon. I think they're like 94 grams, and they stop me from having to use so much sunscreen. So I'm probably going to ditch these for something else. Reasoning is these are just too warm. I'm too warm in them when I'm moving. So I'm not going to wear them, and they're not going to protect me from the sun if I'm not wearing them. So it was a really interesting experiment. These cost like $24, but they're probably going to stay home. In lieu of these, I'm just going to bring those Alpha Direct leggings I was talking about, and just probably more sunscreen. The other thing about those pants is they're just too close to actual rain pants, and I'm already bringing rain pants. So if it's cold and sunny, I have rain pants to move into. And the final thing I brought for clothes was 2 turkey bags. These are, again, for my feet. Say there was a monsoon storm that wouldn't let up all day, I could put on a dry pair of socks and then put this over the socks, and hopefully that'll keep my feet dry a little bit more than not having this plastic bag to put my feet in. Worst case scenario, but again, if you keep your feet happy and dry, they're going to let you go 500 miles. These are actually very light. They don't take up a lot of space, but it could save me. And that's it. That's all the clothes I brought. It's not a lot. So we're cutting it close. Okay, let's move to electronics. Unfortunately, in this day and age, I have to bring a bunch of electronics, it seems. It's kind of mandatory, I guess. But here we are. First is a battery pack. This one is definitely going to replace. This is a 20,000 milliamp, very heavy battery pack from Anker. I can probably find one that's like half the weight for as much milliamps. Some Bluetooth earbuds for tunes. I need music almost constantly when I'm running. InReach, so everyone can track me, and if something happens, I can call somebody. A headlamp, and I did a review of this headlamp already, and I really love it. It's about 100 grams, and it's coming along on the trip. And I went through, looks like 75% of this battery in 3 days, so we'll bring maybe 3 batteries in total. So the battery that's in there and an extra one. And I just brought 2 charging cables with some accessories on the end. So these are USB-C cart charging cables, but I have little ends, so if I need to hook into a regular USB port, I can. If I need to hook into a lightning port for my phone, I can, or a micro USB. So that's what those little things are. And I brought 2 of each of these little adapters to put in, so I don't have to bring like 3 different kinds of charging cables. I just have to bring the ends. And then I did bring a camera, like a GoPro for this trip, but I'm not going to bring a GoPro on my actual FKT attempt if I do it, just because this weighs about a pound, and I will not have the time nor the interest in filming myself. Just going to do the trip. And of course my phone, I'm bringing my phone. So the next thing I have is personal items, toiletries. I did bring a few just because I need a few things in my daily life. Like I need to brush my teeth every day. I wear contact lenses, so I need things like my contact solution and extra contact. I'm very pale. I'm very fair, so I need actually quite a bit of sunscreen. I also have sleep apnea, so I wear a retainer at night. And then there's a few things for my feet, some Leukotape, and then I have some pills, some like caffeine pills, a few supplement pills, a very few amount of NSAIDs. NSAIDs are really bad for trips like this, so I try to avoid them. But if I really hurt myself and I need to get out, it's nice to be able to pop an NSAID or something just to like get back to a trailhead and call it quits. Oh yeah, and mustache wax. I'm bringing in like 10 grams of mustache wax and a very little comb, which is what that is. Sleep is super important on the trail. It's the only time you can recharge. There's not going to be anyone that's going to help you get to sleep, feed you minty tea, massage your aching legs or anything like that. Lying down in a sleeping bag is going to be your only solace on this entire trip. Just like everything you bring, you're trying to minimize the amount of weight and space that your sleep system takes up. So this has been one of the areas I've been trying to whittle down as much as possible. So like I mentioned before, the back padding of my backpack is my sleeping pad, and it easily comes out of the backpack back, as it's just connected by this little mini bungee cord. So I can grab it whenever I need to on the trail, if it's for the entire night or just for 10 minutes while I do some trail yoga. And it's just a closed cell foam pad, and I cut it down to just 6 panels, and that's enough to reach from my shoulder blades to my butt. And this is basically the lightest pad I could, realistically get away with. Since it performs double duty as the back padding to my backpack, you save even that much more weight. That's an old ultralight backpacking trick, and I'm definitely going to employ something like that on my trip. All right, next is my sleeping bag. This is a Feathers Friends Vireo, and this is a really cool sleeping bag because it has no zippers to it. It's just a big tunnel that you burrow through. There's no way to zip it up. So without a zipper, you just lose that much more, weight. That's not actually insulation. And this bag is also interesting because the lower half actually has more downfill than the upper half. The idea is you just wear another layer, say all my layers, on top, and then you can have a little bit less layers on the bottom. So the idea is I don't have to bring as many clothes if I don't need to. So the bottom is rated for 25 and the top is rated for 40. So this is around 16 ounces, I think, completely for the sleep bag. It's one of the lightest sleep bags that I have access to. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. Again, I just use a bag for a different tent because it's made of Dyneema and it's extremely light. So might as well use the lightest bags I have at my disposal. All right, next is this bag, which has 2 things. It has a ultralight pillow from Sea to Summit. I definitely need a pillow these days to sleep on. I'm wearing all my clothes, so it's not like I can just stuff a stuffed sack full of clothes I'm not using and use that as a pillow. So I have to actually bring a pillow. I think it's like 36 grams or something. And then my shelter in its entirety is this little guy right here. This is a one-person shelter from Gossamer Gear. It's made of 10D sil nylon. It's actually not very expensive, but it's very, very light. It's about 220 grams, and it packs down very tiny. So you can put it in your pocket if you really need to. Again, I only have like a 40-liter pack, right? So space is at a premium. This shelter is really all I really need to make it through kind of a rainy couple of hours. I don't need some forest palace to be, in. I just need to be dry enough. And just to complement the sleeping bag, I do have a bivy. This is a SOL kind of Tyvek bivy. I've probably had this for about 10 years. I've never used it, but it's just a Tyvek material with some reflective kind of mylar-ish coating that probably doesn't really do anything. This is really a great idea because when the dew point drops in Colorado, all the moisture, if there is any moisture, just falls. And if I wasn't in this bivy, my sleeping bag would just get wet. So that's all this really does, is protect me from the moisture in the air and the dirt in the ground. So just to keep the sleeping bag a little bit cleaner throughout the 10 days. And then I got 6 stakes. That's all the stakes I need to put up that tarp. And to put up the tarp, I used the trekking poles that I showed you previous as points to actually make a shelter, make the tops of my shelter, the peaks of my shelter. So that's the sleep system and shelter. That comes to a total of about 2.5 pounds on its own. It's probably the lightest shelter and sleep system I've ever put together. I wouldn't use this shelter system for just any trip, but the Colorado Trail is actually pretty tame to my standards. Like, I'm not sleeping on top of a 14,000 foot peak. I'm actually below tree line when I'm setting up camp for the most part. I'm not worried about 50 mile per hour winds, for example, but it's just enough to get me through, and that's kind of the idea. So that is, in fact, all the gear that I'm planning to bring. The only other thing we haven't touched upon is food. And I think I've talked at length about the type of food systems I use, and I'm going to use something very similar on this trip as well. So I do still have a full day's ration of food. And here's how I design my food for a day. I have a gallon Ziploc bag, and this holds the day's rations. So if I'm doing a 10-day trip on the Colorado Trail, I would just have 10 of these. And each of these has about 4,500 calories. This one weighs about 2 pounds, 6 or 7 ounces. So if you have 10 of these, you have 20, 25 pounds of food. And by a huge margin, food is the heaviest thing that's going to be in my pack. That's kind of a bummer, but if you think about it, each day, my pack gets lighter by 2 pounds, 6 ounces. So it's kind of a motivator to, one, eat all the food, and two, keep going, because each day is just going to be that much more comfortable. I also am going to be losing about a pound of weight. You have to deal with the consequences when you get home. So let's open it up and see what I brought. So the most important thing I bring is powdered nutrition. So I'll have a Ziploc bag full of powdered nutrition like I do here. This is about 1,000 calories of food. And this is made up of a concoction of Perpetuum, which is mostly maltodextrin. That's a product made from Hammer Nutrition. And then I supplement calories with some coconut oil, some powdered coconut oil, and some whey protein. So I'm getting a lot more fat and a lot more protein than I would with just Perpetuum, which is mostly maltodextrin, a complex carb. I like powdered nutrition because I can add it to my water, and whatever I'm sipping on water, I'm getting in calories, so I don't forget to put in calories in me. And it's a lot easier to consume. These trips, I find eating, the very act of eating is difficult. You don't want to eat, or you get sores on your mouth. It just doesn't happen with like a powdered nutrition like this. So I really love the idea of powdered nutrition. And that's why I bring a wide mouth water bottle. I can just pour the nutrition really easily. It's really solved the problem I've had, is how to get enough food. And I've taken like some inspiration on diets, or like the inverse of a good diet. When you want to have just enough calories, or you're actually trying to be at a deficit. Like, what don't you do? And one of the things they tell you not to do is drink your calories. So if you want to take in the maximum amount of calories, you just drink your calories. So here you are. You have like a little, smoothie packet. So drink your calories. And then I just have basically snack food. Things you don't want to do on a healthy diet is have highly processed, highly palatable foods, right? But if you're trying to take in as much calories as possible, and this is only temporary, you want highly processed, highly palatable food. And what do we call that? We call that candy. So I just brought a lot of candy. I really love licorice, so these are some strawberry soft licorice things from Trader Joe's. Freaking love these. Peanut butter cups, dark chocolate peanut butter cups. You have to bring chocolate of some sort on these kinds of trips. So I'm bringing dark chocolate peanut butter cups. And I also brought macadamia nuts. These things are incredible. So tons of calories in these suckers. And when you chew them, they become creamy and just delicious. And they're just covered in salt, so you get a little bit of salt in you as well. And the rest, I just have a few little like protein bars to up my protein for the trip. My current loadout is about 145 grams of protein a day, which I think is pretty good. Altogether, there's about 4,500 calories. For this loadout, I am trying to target a 40-30-30 ratio of the types of macros I have. And it's not because I think it's some magical number. It's just that fat weighs less in my pack. And if I can pack as much fat as possible that I can actually eat, that's all the better for me. So from my last trip and from my training hikes, I'm never hitting a heart rate that's above my aerobic threshold. So there's never a time where I'm going to get stomach cramps from not being able to digest food. So I'm actually free to eat whatever I want. So that's sort of what kind of makes this trip a little bit different than a run. All food is possible, including something like macadamia nuts, which are actually pretty hard to digest. So that's something cool I found out just from experimenting with these hikes and wearing like a heart rate monitor for 3 days at a time and doing weird things like that. All right, that's the entire loadout of my Colorado Trail gear for an unsupported FKT. There's not a lot to it, and that's one of the things I really love about this is we're not trying to maximize the amount of moving parts. We're actually doing the opposite. We're trying to minimize the amount of moving parts. What can you do without? What can you leave at home? What is the core amount of gear that you need to pull this off? Anything more than that you bring is just going to slow you down. So I really love the philosophy of an unsupported FKT for sure. I'll leave like a spreadsheet of all my gear or something similar to the gear I just explained in the description of this video if you want to check it out. Nothing is in stone but this is sort of the direction I'm going towards, and I'm not going to make any drastic changes because I've been working on this system all year to just whittle it down to exactly what I need, and I think I'm getting really close. So I'm really excited. And somehow my body feels great as well. So if you have any questions about the gear I'm bringing that you'd like to ask me, please feel free, leave a comment below and I'll get to that. And until next time, long may you range.